Hey everybody, it's Brian Costello from Core Mental Health Counseling. I just wanted to hop on here and talk a little bit about a model that I really like to use in counseling, which is normally what they call it is the DBT states of mind. And this is a modification of that model for addiction. So normally in the DBT model of states of mind, what you'd see is two overlapping circles, similar to like a Venn diagram. One side is reasonable mind, some people call it rational mind. The other side is emotion mind. And right in the middle is wise mind, which is kind of the intuitive balance between the two. In addiction treatment, what we use is um, it is addict mind, which would be associated with emotion mind. I don't love the term, but it's basically that addictive thinking. In 12-step groups, they call it stinking thinking. Whether the person is in active addiction or abstinent, it is kind of that addictive type of thinking. In the middle is clear mind. So it sees addict mind, it's in clear mind. And on the other side, the right side of the circle, or the right circle itself, is what they call clean mind. And so I thought I'd just talk briefly about each of these, states of mind and see if you or your loved one can kind of find yourself in either. When I worked in addiction treatment, inpatient, it was a really, really helpful tool when people were completing treatment, because often they would come in that addict mind state, and then they would be leaving in clean mind where they forgot about the addict part, and they were going to leave and they were just going to like go to work and they were going to work hard, and they didn't think about addiction anymore. And we always used to kind of describe it as like the wind up toy, like the car that you rev back or wind up, and it's got a lot of energy at the very beginning, and that's motivation, and you let that car go, and eventually it's going to fall. That motivation is going to stop. So this was a really helpful tool to kind of get people to really be thinking about, this part of the journey is over, leaving treatment. But this is, it's a long-term plan. You need a long-term plan in order to stay sober. So I wanted to start just with the first circle, which is that addict mind, and talk about some of that thinking. So addict mind, you might hear yourself or your loved one say, it's always going to be like this. I'm always going to feel this way. I'm never going to be able to stop long term. I'll stop tomorrow. Someone's still in active addiction. It's really not that bad. So kind of comparing themselves to other people. So, at least I'm not doing drugs. At least I'm not using a needle. At least I'm not drinking every day. At least I'm not drinking liquor. So always kind of comparing itself to someone or something that's much worse. I just need it. I want it. This is how I am. Maybe making jokes about being an alcoholic, or just living for the weekend. And really just this idea of like, I'll never be able to go the rest of my life without it. So, essentially, why would I try? A lot of this thinking is in alignment with like continuing to drink or use a substance. And the last one that I thought of, you would drink too if you felt this way, or if you had my life. So then the pendulum can swing in the other direction. So let's say somebody gets sober, they start to feel good, they're abstinent for a little bit, and the pendulum swings to the other side. So that's clean mind. Clean mind detaches from addict mind. So a lot of times people will want to just close that door, close the chapter, and just like, I want to be done with this. I want to move forward. I don't want people asking me about this. And that's clean mind. So clean mind forgets, and you could be in active addiction for 10 years, 15 years, 30 years, 2 years, it doesn't really matter. But clean mind wants the chapter to be closed. We don't want to go back and look at all the things that we did that made us feel bad, and we just like keep our feet moving. So this is where abstinence comes into play. And we start to feel immune to relapse, even if the person has relapsed several times throughout their recovery journey. We feel immune to it. We feel like we don't need to actually do anything to maintain recovery. What I always try to tell people is if you had to take actions for your addiction, which you do, to get drugs, to get money, to get alcohol, etc., And if you have to think about it regularly, you should be thinking and taking actions for your recovery as well. So in this frame of thinking, I just don't want to do it anymore. I'm good. I feel like I hit my quota. I don't need it anymore. I don't even want it. People would say when they would leave rehab, so what's your plan to stay sober? I don't have a plan because I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done. I feel like I feel good now. So that's clean mind, and that's great that you feel good. It's just the other side's coming. It's always come. And so clean mind, ignores that part. In here, you can always tell if somebody's in clean mind because they're not typically taking actions. They're almost naive to potential future cravings. So cravings are going to come. It's part of it. Everybody goes through it. And so they might minimize that, or they might keep it a secret because why would you tell anybody? Usually if you do tell somebody, then you have to do something about it. And people tend to be sober off motivation. They also tend to live with tunnel vision. So, they start to live in a way of reducing things and taking things away from life versus being able to balance all of it. So just avoiding the beer store, avoiding people, rather than, really sitting and acknowledging the addiction and treating the addiction. We're going to ignore it, and then we have to avoid anything that's going to trigger that addiction. So this is where people can become a little controlling too. We want to make sure everybody starts to live a life that makes me comfortable, because I have this thing that that's a struggle for me. Usually there's a lot of excuses about taking action. So, if somebody says, why don't you try an AA meeting or an NA meeting or a SOS meeting? I don't need that. I don't want to be reminded about my addiction every day, or I don't want to chain smoke cigarettes and drink coffee. And, these are the things that I hear quite a bit when I suggest people try, self-help meetings, which I cannot say enough about. I don't think there's anything higher correlation with sobriety than self-help meetings or mutual aid groups. So clear mind is right in the middle. So that's that circle right in the middle. That takes into account both sides. You can feel really amazing when you first get sober, and you can be really proud of taking those actions, and you can start to clean the house and start to be a part of the family again, and really just acknowledge those things, but at the same time recognize that this other piece is here and it probably isn't going to go away, especially anytime soon. So that craving, that compulsion, and the mental obsession is still there. It has to be acknowledged. You can't keep your feet moving fast enough that it will never catch up. Eventually it's going to catch up. In 12-step groups, they always say that your addiction's out in the parking lot doing push-ups. It uses motivation. It allows that motivation to be there, but it also recognizes that actions need to be taken in order to maintain sobriety long term. So again, if actions were taken to get high or to get drunk, actions will need to be taken to stay sober. So this is DBT states of mind when it comes to addiction. It's addict mind or addictive thinking. Clean mind, which is that shut it off and just keep it moving, almost acknowledge and deny the fact that the addiction was ever there. And right in the middle, which is the balance between the two, is clear mind. And that's kind of where we want to be. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out. I hope this was helpful. Please share this with anybody that you think will be, will benefit, or that might be in need. And, again, please stay safe out there and reach out if you need anything. Thanks.